I hate Damian Wayne.
Psych!
Is what I would say if I was uninitiated, but brothers and sisters of our Natrix army, we are initiated, aren't we, Bruce? I was about to call you guys Bruce. I am okay. I gotta stop myself right there because I know that I am a glazer of Batman. If I'm calling my viewers Bruce? Yeah, somebody needs to stop me. But I know I got some of you guys with the title thumbnail combo. But the reason why I put this video together is that I want to really tackle why people think Damian Wayne is a bad character, because I see why you're uninitiated. It's because all of the versions of Damien that gets adapted, the main ones, whether it is the DC AMU until I guess the very end where he got his character developments, or whether it's from Injustice 2, they were in their bag when it came to making Damian Wayne look bad, because they made sure that he had no character traits other than being an entitled brat. Obviously, that aspect of the character is crucial, right? His arrogance and entitlement, because he was raised by the League of Assassins, and he believed himself to be that rightful heir to Batman, at least in the beginning, so he often acts very superior. Even now, he has a bit of a complex, a bit of an ego, but he does it for the purpose of goading his opponents and making them slip up, right? While he might feel that way, he'll only act that way to those that he's fighting, not against his friends and family members where it's uncalled for unless it is for, childish or playful reasons. Either way, he was known as a very arrogant bat brat who was still maturing, and it does make sense. Let's take a step back for a bit. Damian Wayne, the way that he was acting, if you look at it, it was by the League of Assassins, right? He was trained to be a certain way, to kill, to disobey those who don't understand their code. And on top of the fact, he was also implemented by Talia into Bruce's life to disrupt it. It literally was an act of sabotage because it made the 4 or 5 issues where he was in Batman's care very difficult to deal with, and the readers, they hated this kid. But it made sense. I was actually reading Batman and Son, the arc where he first appeared, and Damien is much worse than I once thought. It makes for a very entertaining character, but man, was this guy not only entitled, he felt more like very impulsive and angry and just, I don't exactly want to say a bomb primed to explode, but he could have sudden outbursts out of nowhere and you'll be like, okay kid, who taught you this? Because the League of Assassins, they definitely taught you discipline, which makes me think, where did this ego come from? The Wayne side or the Ra's al Ghul Talia side? And the more I think about it, it gotta be Bruce Wayne. I know if you told him that straight to his face, like, nah, I'm not that kind of guy, I'm nonchalant. No, you're not. Even in Batman and Robin Year 1 by Mark Waid and Chris Samney that came out this year, this bro was like, I'm going to Wayne the principal. He uses his last name as a verb for when he uses his charisma and he gets out of certain situations. Wayning it. I'm gonna coin that term and use it for myself because the Waynes, they know how to gas themselves up. But these scenes here, I want to go through a selection of scenes that show you how Damien was just so off-kilter. So the first thing is Batman says, you're going to stay put with me, right? You're going to put that training to good use and we're going to fight against crime. And he just slaps Batman's hands away and says, fight crime? Ha! Like a literal anime character. And it's like, you're a warrior, Damien. Who else do you expect to fight? Why are you looking so down upon Batman's mission here? And then he just walks away to look at the prototype Batmobile. But then Batman's like, yo, we're not just gonna let that slide. We gotta talk about what you just did. And then he just starts throwing hands, saying, fight me, show me respect and fight me. Because, as you might know, one of the other traits of Damien is his constant need for approval. In this case, it's even worse because he's trying to show his father that he is worthy of taking the mantle of the Bat. Similar with Talia al Ghul, when he first beat her was when he was allowed to see his father. So he's kind of on a streak right now. He's trying to build up his KD ratio. But then out of nowhere, Tim Drake, my boy, came back to get clobbered because he tries to meet Damien. Why did you come here, Drake? Like, you should have been making a song, damn it. But this right here will be the worst decision of post-crisis Tim Drake out of a multitude of very bad decisions. Obviously, I'm kind of gassing it up a little bit too much, but this builds an immediate rivalry between Damien and Tim, because he sees Tim here as the direct opposition. You're the reason why I am not Batman's second in command. you might be the person that takes up the Batman mantle after he passes away, at least in Damien's mind, if something were to happen to Bruce, right? So he's like, okay, you just gave me a direct line of sight. Tim Drake, watch your back. But then, after Batman said, Alfred will help you unpack, it's been a very difficult and long journey, you should get some rest, literally sucking up to this little brat. He says, don't tell me what to do. He says, Mother let me do what I want. And he says, well, things are different here. I said Alfred will literally help you unpack. This is less work for you, buddy. And he says, allow me to show you to your temporary quarters, young sir, as Alfred the Goat will do. He doesn't ask questions, and he helps whatever guest that Bruce has in the Batcave, in the manor, whatever. And he just ends up saying the F-bomb and walks away. What are we doing here, sir? Like, is this actually Batman's son? Because the comparative profanities between Batman and Damien is already absurd. I don't think I've ever seen Batman say an F-bomb, at least in post-crisis continuity. Here, in Damien's like second appearance, he already did it. He broke the one Batman law. But imagine that though, Batman just using curse words, that would be diabolically funny. But then Damien interrupts once again and says, why can't I get a laptop? I'm just trying to annoy you guys because this is rapid in terms of what Bruce and Alfred has to deal with, because why is he demanding so much stuff immediately? He says, what have you done with my sword? Where are we? And Bruce is like, well, this is a part of my home. I grew up here. You'll get your computer and the sword once I decide it's safe. I still don't know much about you, Damien. But then he just ends up having a tantrum and like literally throwing away the food that Alfred made, considering what looks to be a bunch of drumsticks to be unedible, which I gotta know, what do they eat in the mountains, bro? What do the Tibetan monks end up feeding Damien and Bruce? Like, what cleanses his palate to the point where he doesn't want chicken? Like, for me, as a man, I would end up eating 20 chicken wings and still want more. But Damien here seems to be planted for the verbal smoke, because he keeps telling Batman that you can't make me do anything that I don't want. And it leads to Batman having quite possibly one of the most satisfying crashes of all time. The crash out made me feel better about myself. I was like getting some air out of my system. He was like, enough, you dishonor your sensei with a loss of composure. Your rage is born of fear and is unbefitting in a student of the martial arts. Straight up rating this boy. And he says, you'll be given opportunities to prove yourself to me. Until then, boy, Kratos style, patience is a virtue. And then finally leads to Damien saying, yes, father, because now, due to his alpha male activities, he feels that there is a more dominant person, because before this point, he saw Batman as a very passive person. Even though he knew that he was very capable, he was talking about crime fighting and showing so much respect to Tim and Alfred, and it makes you wonder, what exactly did they do to this boy in the mountains? But unfortunately for everybody here, as soon as he got that blade, he decided to take his father's words to heart. He says, well, fight crime, I can do that. I fought crime tonight. Crime lost. And he ends up decapitating the head of a D-tier Batman villain and stuffs a grenade in his mouth. This is so on the next level of overkill that it's not even funny. Like, I was reading about this guy and I was chuckling. He has goons that have like blankets draped over them so that they look like ghosts. He himself speaks like Skeletor and has an evil maniacal villain laugh as he floats through the air. Like, what is there not to like about the spook? This guy was my best friend. I wish he was, actually, but not really. But he just throws his head up in the air, explodes it, then ends up beefing with Tim for the mantle of the bat. Tim goes BTA and bullies Damien, but then Damien backhands him because he's completely off guard, trying to do some talk no jutsu. Never do that to Damien, and he falls onto the ground. And this is a great fall that leads to a lot of blood being spilled. And if Batman did not see him and Alfred wasn't there for medical attention, Damien would have killed Tim. This is the level of psychological instability that made a lot of people dislike him. And honestly, while I was very entertained by this and I didn't hate him as much as other people, I could understand why people wanted this kid to die immediately. He just assumed that he was better than everybody else. He knew that he was the best Robin there was at his age. the skill gap between him at age like 9-10 to like Dick Grayson at age 9-10 and Jason Todd is night and day. He is light years ahead of them, and that keeps his head literally in the clouds. Honestly, Morrison did maybe too good of a job because his idea was to make a character that was hated, somebody that could grow throughout his run, and Damien was exactly that. He wasn't poorly written, he might have been a bit too well written considering just how much everybody around him and even people in real life wanted to write him out. But that is not the end of Damien's story or his character development. But thanks to adaptations, people end right here. And this is only in the first 4 or 5 issues of his existence, and people are stuck at his debut. Ever since then, it's almost been 20 years since Damien has existed, so there's 19 years of material that people just forego because they're only familiar with visual mediums and not the comics itself. And that's okay because I am here to educate you. There are 3 specific moments when it comes to Damien's character arc that really elevates him above any other modern legacy character in the 21st century. Over the span of a decade and some change, multiple writers worked to make him really stand out when compared to his competition. And I just really want to highlight this because when it comes to the mainstream audience, they really are in the dark when it comes to this development, and that is very much a shame. So I'm gonna do my part and help out my boy's rep because he needs it, bro. His name is in the trenches and I believe it should not be there. The first moment begins in Morrison's run in the Batman and Robin segment when Dick Grayson takes up the mantle of the Bat. And here is really the heart of Damien's redemption. Dick doesn't treat Damien like a weapon, like a soldier, like a sidekick. He treats him like a brother. And you have to remember, this was a child who was never allowed a childhood, but under Dick's mentorship, 3 key changes unfold. The first one is that he learns empathy. He begins to recognize the pain of others, especially in children. In the Streets of Gotham arc by Paul Dini, one of the best writers of Batman the Animated Series, we see a situation where he sees a bunch of dismembered and disfigured kids in a Christmas case, and this traumatizes him to the point that he literally vomits. Early Damien would never bat an eye. He would be like, well, that kinda sucks, let's go on with our day. This moment matters because his violence is slowly but surely being replaced by genuine emotional horror. Damien then learns accountability. In the first arc of Morrison's Batman and Robin run, Professor Pig and his Dolatrons, and he failed to save a girl that he promised to save from their kidnap. And this guilt haunts him so much that it's later used in the subsequent story arcs when Damien fights against Red Hood. It's the first time where he understands the responsibility of Robin. It's not just skill. And then finally, he learns trust. He starts to rely on Dick, even calling him a friend, a brother, something that he never admitted to anyone his age. Dick becomes the father figure and/or older brother role that he always needed. Yes, not a biological one, which actually is for Damien's benefit because when it came to Bruce, he was desperately in need of wanting to impress him. One moment that I really like, and it takes place in the 4th arc in issue 10 of the Batman and Robin series, is when they were trying to resurrect Bruce Wayne, and it leads to him, Damien, having a new layer added upon his character because for the first time, at least from my recollection, is when he felt fear because he was starting to get a hang of the Batman and Robin dynamic duo situation, and as soon as he started to get that shtick inside and ingrained within his head, everything is in danger of falling apart. And Batman says, Robin, we're looking for things that line up conceptually. And he's like, if my father returns, we can't be Batman and Robin anymore, can we? And Batman's like, no, I guess not. It's a small price to pay getting him back alive. I can go back to doing what I was doing as Nightwing. And he's like, what will I do? Do you think my father would let me stay on as Robin? And he's like, you honestly think he would put up with you the way that I do? And this little joke ends up leaving Damien cold, and he actually goes silent. For the first time, the egotistical know-it-all facade starts to crack, because now he's unsure of himself. He doesn't know what the future holds. And this, the Robin mantle, means something to him. It's a way to have a second chance. And he's like, Damien, I'm joking. You're not joking. So you could tell that this really hurt Damien to his core, because without the Robin mantle, he's nothing. And he's like, do you know what I gave up for this? It's not just a nothing to me, and even if Batman does come back, which I would love because he is my father, this is a way for him to possibly accept me. And this takes us to the Tomasi Gleason era during the New 52 and Rebirth initiatives. In 2011, DC was going through their own set of sizable changes with their second continuity-wide reboot, that of course being the New 52, and we can talk about the semantics of the New 52 and its quality, but this did mark an important chapter in the life of Damian Wayne, starting with the Tomasi and Gleason run of Batman and Robin, one of my favorite runs of all time, in particular for Damien, because it did two very important things. The first one was setting up the consistent characterization of him being a lovable brat. And yes, this was done before, in particular in the Stephanie Brown Batgirl run, which is PSA, one of the best runs there is in the Batman Reborn era, and is very underrated. Everyone check out that run. The Damian-Stephanie Brown relationship is sorely missed in the modern era. The second thing is that it really built on the characterization of not only Damien but Bruce Wayne. Both of them went on a crazy character arc, because Damien had to learn how to be a son and Bruce had to learn how to be a proper father. And at the very beginning, they're a bit at odds with each other, butting heads consistently because they had very differing ideologies that over the course of this run changes over time. Damien becomes a more lighthearted person, but that was through a lot of effort and hard work. And what I really love about this run is that it accidentally was a layup for future writers in terms of certain subject matter. The three things that I want you guys to keep in the back of your head for subsequent segments is 1. His relationship with death and morality. 2. His relationship with his higher calling, should he follow the footsteps of his father or his grandfather. And 3. His connection to art. All of this will make sense in a little bit, but I like seeing throughout the book subtle changes in Damien's personality. He started off being very, I don't know if strict is the right word, but very on edge. And when Bruce tries to wake him up, he catches his hand and says, I'm up. The second time is very subtle, but he actually gets to wake Damien. He says, oh, I'm up, and he wakes up through Bruce touching him. So you can see that he's way more at ease as the relationship starts to build. Interestingly enough, we get to see both of their thoughts in full force in the Batcave segments of this book. In the beginning of issue 2, we see Bruce talking to Alfred, and he says, for the first time, I'm afraid, Alfred. And he's like, of what? Of dying, of leaving a black hole in Damien's life, and what is it, Bruce? I'm afraid of what Damien could become without me around. He's trying to keep him on the straight and narrow because without him, he's more than likely going to revert back to his old practices of killing his enemies. In the second sequence in the Batcave, Alfred confronts him once again on his father methods, and he's like, did you tell Damien that you were proud of him? And he's like, of course I did. Hello? Who do you think I am? And he's like, what exactly did you say? With the craziest frown on his face. I have never seen such a half a trapezoid in my life. And he says, I said his actions were commendable. He's acting like a sergeant here, not a father. And he's like, the words great job or I'm proud of you, that never crossed your mind? And he's like, what's wrong with commendable? It means being proud, more than proud. It means admirable, praiseworthy. And he's like, brother, ew, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm afraid it means you have a lot of work to do. And then this segues to a very interesting and consistent bit in the Born to Kill story arc, where Damien catches an animal, looks at it, and then he kills it. Then he examines it to see if he feels anything, and then he throws it away. He does it once with one of the bats at the Batcave, and a second time with a firefly, saying, it's never completely dark for you, is it? There's always a light on, even if it's just behind you. And then he kills it. But early on in the book, he does describe exactly what led him to doing these things. His idea of morality is that death is death, people die, good people die in very bad ways, and so does bad people, life moves on. Later, we see Alfred and Damien playing chess, and it leads to a bunch of chess allegories. But one of the things that sticks with Damien is when Alfred says that Batman is just protecting his castle. This becomes very integral to his character development. When fighting the main villain of the Born to Kill arc, also known as Nobody, this man was straight BTA on the entirety of Bruce and Damien, and these guys are master fighters, but he was doing some crazy work to them, breaking their bones, and in particular, Damien experienced the worst trauma, and Batman lost it. He ends up almost killing him, but then he sees Damien's face, and then he stops. And after that though, Damien just stares at brother, and he looks at him say, "Don't disappoint me," because before this he was trying to get Damien on his side to kill criminals, even giving him a Glock to shoot somebody straight in the face, but thankfully Damien did not do this. This leads to a crazy pull of aura as a lightning bolt strikes right behind Damien as he says, "You know I'll be back to kill you all." And it leads to Damien just straight up killing him, as Batman is in horror. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." And when Batman asks him, "Why did you do this?" he's like, "I was just trying to be like you. I was doing what I had to do for you, Father, to help you, to protect our castle, protect our kingdom." Because if he was alive, a person from Bruce's past who knows everything about Bruce, he would lead to a lot of calamity. And this is one of the first times, if not the only time, that we see him actually kill through a virtuous manner or for a virtuous reason. He's not killing for himself, to save himself, or just for his strict satisfaction. He's doing it to help his father and the lives of the people that he loves. And this is a turning point where he really understands death. And from here, he kind of forsakes killing. He doesn't want to do it anymore. And this is what really made me fall in love with Damien as a character. He has full-on arguments with Bruce later on. Not exactly a yelling argument, but it leads to Bruce going into his idea of death and killing and his no-kill rule. "I fight back that uncontrollable urge more than you know. You can't face lunatics like we do on a daily basis and not have it boil up when they put innocent lives in jeopardy. I'd be lying if I told you it never crossed my mind, but I made a promise to myself and on the souls of my parents to live by certain principles. Principles don't allow for exceptions. There's an old proverb that says if you walk down a road of vengeance, then you should dig 2 graves, one for your enemy and one for yourself. You can't build a better world by killing criminals. It bankrupts your soul and society by reinforcing the same cycle of violence. You have to believe it, you have to live it from here on out. Not for my sake, but yours." And Damien just breaks down. He's like, "I don't want to end up like Descartes, like Nobody, without a moral compass. I don't want to turn out like these people. I want to be like you. I've always wanted to be like you, but sometimes I don't know what I am, or even who I am." Bruce comforts him and says, "You're my son. All I want you to be is the best Damian Wayne you can be." And he says, "Don't give up on me, Father. I have no intention to." This hit me in my soul. This is beautiful storytelling that elevated Damien's character, and I love the fact that Bruce Wayne got him a dog and gave him the choice to name him, and he gave him the name Titus. This connection with the dog led to him better understanding the value of life, and also his connection with animals. Unlike every other Robin there is, he's the one who takes it the hardest when they fail, when somebody gets hurt, or when there's a wounded animal he can't save, which led to him having so many different pets. You might as well call him Maya from Alvea Sanctuary at this point. W Pull, if you guys know. I think she actually got more likes on a comment when interacting with LeBron James, the GOAT. And I know a lot of you guys don't even know what I'm talking about, but if you do, check out Maya. But either way, as a character and as a person, no matter how much we learn, there will be moments when we take a step back, 2 steps forward, and 1 step back. And this is delved in detail in the, I'm pretty sure, 14th issue of this run, and it sees Damien disobeying orders. And Bruce is like, "I don't know what to say, except I'm not sure if this is going to work out. I'm terrified that you don't care about anybody but yourself." And he says, "But I do, Father. putting one of the pearls of Martha Wayne's necklace, a necklace that was broken that he was trying to find and put back together. He looks at him, he says, "Damien, I am proud of you," as they hug, possibly for the first time. This is what makes Damien not hateable. This little face right here, oh dude, oh my goodness bro, protect this little kid at all costs. I love his character development. But we are not done yet, because this takes us to the modern day. As many of us know, Alfred has unfortunately bit the bullet. The Bat family equivalent of the second tower has been hit. Honestly, I am surprised how long Alfred has been killed. It's been, or has been dead. Pardon my English, I am a native English speaker. But it has been 5 years, and what was the reason why our brother was killed? It was half on Batman's part for being completely honest, somebody who just didn't care and just went to the beach instead of dealing with Bane, and the second half of blame goes onto Damian Wayne, who disobeyed a direct martial law status that prevented them from going in, and once they went in, or Damien that is, he got caught by Thomas Wayne, and Alfred got killed because of that. Those are the consequences that were at play, and this haunted Damien for the rest of his modern era, from 2019 all the way till maybe like 2023, 2024, and in the Robin series by Joshua Williamson, which is really good, mind you, I won't spoil what happens, but the direct gist of it is that Damien wants to enter something called the Lazarus Tournament. Everyone has 3 lives, and once you're killed, you will be resurrected, and it's all Lazarus based, but also with a magic twist, because Lazarus also has magical properties. Who knew? But the reason for entering this tournament is to take down the League of Lazarus, a sect of the League of Assassins that kind of branched away to do its own thing, on top of the fact that he wanted to get some Lazarus resin so that he could resurrect Alfred. And there are 2 interesting noteworthy scenes, at least for our discussion here, in this book that I want to speak about. The first one was his interaction with Nightwing and how he breaks down, because he feels like ever since that neck snap, that's been playing in his ears, and Dick was here to talk to him. He's like, "You know how many times I ran away from home from Bruce and Alfred? More than I can count. For a long time, I was Batman's sidekick or the leader of the Titans or whatever role that I had to be in. It took me a bit to figure out who I was away from that." And he's like, "Why are you telling me this?" It's because, well, you were connected to me. The reason why you're in all of this is because you were my Robin. He actually ended up giving him this little baton that Alfred gave him for his birthday, and it says, "Versus the World." And he says, "It's made from a trapeze bar in my family's act." Alfred got it and painted it black for me. It helped me remember that I came from 2 worlds, but I think you need this more than I do now. Alfred knew I struggled with my past, present, and future, and anytime I needed reminding of who I was, I'd think of that gift. This was a literal passing of the torch from Dick to Damien, telling him, yes, you belong as Robin, you are Robin. And this was also some much needed therapy for him, because at this point in time, he was taking all the pain by himself, right? Crying and dealing with a hallucination of Alfred everywhere he went. And honestly, if you look at the recent Batman 2025 run, he's hallucinating Alfred there. This might be biological and genetic. Alfred hallucinations, a part of the Wayne family starter pack. But just like the main series, Alfred is actually very helpful and gives him a hallucination, a literal mental trip on how Batman came to be to help Damien in his time of need. But as Damien was kind of cycling through all of Bruce's achievements and the kind of path that he took to become Batman in year 1, literally placing himself in his father's shoes, he thought that the key of Batman was the bat on his father's head of that entire statue. But he's like, no, yes, he may have become a bat because of that, but the key to Batman was asking for help. Without ringing that little bell, Batman would have just bled out and died, but because he had that, Alfred was able to come and save him. And this is what led him to actually start reaching out to others and not to keep the pain of Alfred's death within his heart. He literally is a mini Bruce Wayne, because one of Batman's many character arcs is discovering that he needs allies. And Damien figured this out in his own way. When he eventually gets his way to Alfred's grave with a bit of that Lazarus resin, he says that he was the first person to ever treat him with kindness, who always treated him with respect and had faith in him at every step of the way, and he feels like he failed him, but he has the one tool that he can use to fix that. And then he ends up fighting the version of Damien that people think he actually is. He hears a voice that says, "Go on, do it, bring the old man back from the dead. You always control death, it's only right that you also control life." And Damien assumes that he's some sort of like magic or a hallucination, and brother just starts swinging, saying, "I'm you, I'm everything everyone says about you. A risk, a killer, a monster, a sniveling brat, a mistake, a burden on your father, on his family, on this world. You're created not out of love, but out of violence, hate. That is what you really are. Everyone looks at you, knows that about you, even Alfred, so go ahead, bring him back. Show Alfred what you are." And then he actually ends up breaking it. He has a realization. And then he meets his mother, who holds his hand and pulls him out of the grave that he fell within. And this ends up being a very interesting character analysis of Damian Wayne, peeling back another layer that we never knew was there. He was ready to scrap up with her because he believed that she was here for war. Tell your ninjas hiding in the shadows to stay out of it. This is the cycle of our lives. Raish hates his mother, you hate your father. Because of you and Batman, I know I would never have children. I would never subject them to the life we live, which is a very crazy and telling statement. I don't think I've ever seen Damien ever talk about his future like this, but eventually it does lead to Talia saying that she wants to stop the cycle. And even to this day right now, they repaired the relationship. The family is not fractured anymore. Even Bruce and Talia have made amends and are somewhat on again, off again, partners, depending on if they're, with each other or not, because their missions take them all across the world, and usually they're not together all the time. And it's just really nice to see Damien take a win because he's been taking L after L. He never could catch a break. But thankfully, from here, he was on the up and up. In the beginning of the series, we see that he's into manga, and eventually in subsequent series, he becomes a full-blown artist, making his own comic books. It's a full transformation of his art, because in the Tomasi Gleason book, we saw that his art was only a way for him to shed light on his trauma, on his insecurities, on everything bad that he feels. Everything that he drew was out of self-harm, to the point that when Batman found it, he worried about Damien's mental health even more. Now, he uses it as a way to, of course, talk about his emotions and the way that he wants his future to go, as of course he makes self-insert comic books where he is the main character, but all of it just goes back to him being a more well-adjusted kid. A kid who knows what he wants his future to be, a future that isn't solely about Robin, as we see when he's making his manga books, which I really love the way that he does this, right? He draws and it completely changes the art style of the comic itself, but from here, we see his thoughts through these images and how he actually read the journals of Thomas Wayne, and from here, he felt an innate connection, not only to Thomas, but also to the Gotham that he had within him, the Gotham that he created by being a doctor. We see him not want to follow in the footsteps of Batman or his grandfather Ra's al Ghul, but the grandfather of his father's side, a grandfather who was a healer, and that changes his entire trajectory of a character arc once again. Another paradigm twist, and how poetic is that as a character, to become a killer of men to eventually a healer of everyone. And what makes this so good is that Ra's al Ghul was also a doctor before he was corrupted. It was almost like it was ingrained in his blood to do this, but in the modern day, Bruce and Damien's relationship could not be stronger. Bruce realizes and has the words within his mouth. He finally uses his voice to speak without the bat filter. He says, "You are a great Robin. You deserve everything that you want. I am very proud of you, and you deserve to hear it from me. I don't really say it often, but I will start now." And this is so cool to see because he once said, "I want you to be the best Damian Wayne that you could be. Not like me, not like your grandfather, like you, the coolest version of you that you can be." And that is exactly what he's doing now. And he sees that Damien wants to have a life outside of Robin. He says, "Throughout all of my capabilities, through everything in my power, I will make sure that you have that. You'll have Robin and you'll have whatever you choose to do. I will make it so through my resources, and we will continue to have a great relationship to do everything that other kids did with their fathers, going to the movies, playing chess, playing video games. They have really created one of, if not the best father-son dynamics in all of comics. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Is Damien your favorite Robin or one of your favorites? He's definitely interchangeable to me depending on the day. Dick Grayson's my favorite, Tim Drake's my favorite, and Damian Wayne. All of them, in my mind, are on equal footing. But yeah, guys, remember to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. And yeah, see you all later. Take care. Deuces. Peace.